At that time, the City of Edmonton's investment in the power generation business was significantly threatened due to the pending changes in regulation that would allow competition. It either had to compete and grow or suffer and shrink at the hands of new and larger competitors. Not wanting to go the way of EdTel, the City of Edmonton elected instead to create EPCOR and anchor the company to a governance model that separated business decisions from political ones, and that would allow the company to move forward and compete as a business and not as a department of the city. We're here today because of the wisdom of that decision. As we began our work with EPCOR, we recognized the ingredients for success and steady growth were there, or painful decline. We had to get the strategy right, and we had to execute with precision. What we did is we focused on our desired outcome, and then we built the strategy back to achieve that vision. Our vision was, and still is, was to build a North American-based power and water company that would consistently deliver value to its shareholder. To accomplish that goal, though, we had to build a brand that customers would trust and would recommend to other customers, communities would welcome, and we could attract and retain a workforce that would be inspired by that vision. At the time, it was evident that the growth was there in the generation business, but quite frankly, the opportunities simply weren't there in water or power distribution, so we focused all the resources on the generation side. Now, it was very hard in those first few years. Nobody ever heard of EPCOR. Some places we traveled to hadn't even heard of Edmonton. We would then mention the mall, we would mention Eskimos or Oilers, and the lights would go on, and suddenly we had recognition. And so, also the fact that we were owned by a municipality was often met with disdain and discounted. It was great, though, on the other hand, because many of our competitors underestimated us. And with the passage of time, the business slowly grew, and it grew. As I alluded to at the beginning of my remarks, there were 5 key building blocks and 1 condition that formed the foundation for our growth. And I just want to dwell on 2 of those. One is the governance, and the second is finance. And then I'll briefly highlight those 2 and wrap up my comments on leadership. So the governance model. From the beginning, we created a unanimous shareholders agreement that put in place a model that separated the business decisions from the political ones. This is a very tough and complex role for elected officials who must act jointly as an elected representative of the people, but also as EPCOR's shareholder representative. These are very 2 different and distinct roles, and often they are very poorly understood by the general public. Our city councilors are seldom, if ever, given credit for the competent and consistent manner that they discharge these dual roles. At this time, I want to acknowledge and thank them for the great job that they've done over these years to create and maintain the conditions and preserve that governance model, because that's what allows EPCOR to succeed. Our independent board of directors operates at arm's length from our shareholder, and as stewards of the company is responsible for the oversight and execution of our strategy. More than anything, that is the foundation that allowed EPCOR for its success. In fact, this was recognized by the EPCOR board winning the National Governance Award from the Conference Board of Canada, I believe it was in 2004, and the board was cited for its excellence and innovation in bringing together the best of public and private sectors, and that was the gold medal, tops in Canada, and still is. We've been fortunate to be able to attract to this board some of the best and brightest business leaders in the country. From Edmonton, I acknowledge Hugh Bolton as our chairman, and we have a number of directors in the audience today. Larry Pollock, Mike Percy, Alistair McPherson, and Sheila Weatherall. From Calgary, Doug Mitchell, Wesley Twiss. From Vancouver, Bob Phillips, and from Toronto, Steve Mattias, Helen Sinclair, and Alex Davidson. I have to thank them all for their support. Shift to finance. The other critical foundation piece that's necessary and had to be in place was the ability to fund our investments and make back not just we invested dollar for dollar, but dollar for dollar and then some more. EPCOR's internally generated funds from operations simply aren't sufficient capital to support the level and trajectory of growth that we have for the business. We do undertake various debt offerings, but we're precluded from issuing common equity. It was therefore with much hope we acquired TransCanada's Power LP, and we later renamed it the EPCOR Power LP, to provide us a sort of hybrid form of access to the equity markets in 2005. Well, it wasn't a very short time later that Minister Flaherty, despite what they said previously, taxed the trusts and removed whatever competitive advantage we may have had. Lesson learned for us there was don't put all your eggs in one basket, be flexible, and be mindful that government intervention is often one of your biggest risks. From that point forward, we continued to grow the business to the point where our appetite and consumption of capital for the generation business simply outgrew our shareholders' risk profile and our ability to sustain a predictable, stable dividend, if you will. At that time, we were now North American-based and Canada's fourth largest independent power producer with operations across Canada and the United States. Thus, we made the decision to crystallize the value that we had created in the generation business and redeploy these funds in our more stable and predictable water and wires business. The value of that transaction in July of 2009 was $2.7 billion. We received $468 million cash, $896 million in back-to-back debt, the balance in shares, which represented at that time about 72%. Last month, we completed a further sell-down of our investment in Capital Power, $221 million, and that brings our ownership today down to about 60%, 60.5%. Now, with that as comments, I would now like to turn and just share with you a few words on leadership as I wrap up my words here today. Now, these are some of my personal insights on leadership and lessons learned over the years. And I want to share them today with the audience with the hope that they may be of more help, particularly to the younger people and those earlier on in your career. These are 9 points, and here they are. The first is, everyone is born with the potential to be a leader and has some special skill or trait that distinguishes them from all others. Now, the conditions and circumstances that follow and the choices they make determines the extent to which they develop as leaders or develop that skill. Your job as a leader is to help your people identify that talent and skill, and through your coaching and development of opportunities, maximize the impact of that on your corporation continuously. Secondly, when starting your career, don't expect to join the company at the top. Unless your parents own the company, or, you're starting Facebook, the best way is work your way up. It really contributes to your value as an individual and to your knowledge and your potential to contribute. Third, leaders aren't perfect human beings. They're people. Often you have to look at the whole package of skills that a person brings to the table and the leadership skills required for a particular period of time or situation that the company is facing. So don't overly dwell on a particular fault or shortcoming as long as it doesn't go to values like honesty and integrity. On values, there's no compromise. Fourth, don't be complacent. You need to be thinking all the time so you're ready to capitalize on opportunities as they arise and for risks as they will inevitably arise and surprise you. Failure to anticipate or complacency often means that when these events do occur and come along, you lack the time to respond thoughtfully, having considered alternatives. And therefore, you too often resort to ad hoc responses, which in business sometimes can be disastrous. Fifth, don't make your decisions in haste. These are the ones that you're going to regret, especially emotional in haste. It's best to step back, conduct due process, and get feedback from a close series of advisors. Sleep on major decisions because reflection will always make them better. I can share with you the worst decisions that I've made in business and life are those that I've often rooted in the mistaken belief that speed was equated with success. It seldom is. Sixth, good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from trying and either succeeding or making mistakes. The point is, you don't get that experience or learning opportunity without trying, and you don't get trying opportunities without facing adversity. So look to challenges, crises, and adversities as opportunity to improve yourself. Don't run away from them. 7, it's more important to do the right thing than to do things right. What I mean by that is often the easy decisions as it pertains particularly to people or business are the wrong ones. And the right decisions take courage, and they're very hard to do. But making the right decisions builds character, confidence, and people want to work with leaders that make the right decisions. 8, never give up, but develop the wisdom to recognize the differences between the challenges that you can evolve and adapt to and those you can't. There's almost always a solution or a workaround, no matter how insurmountable a task is. But never bet your company, especially on risks you can't control. And lastly, I call it the I am third rule. As a leader, put the interests of your company and people before yourself. And never ask your people to do something that you yourself don't do or wouldn't do. So in closing, as EPCOR enters its second phase of growth, we're confident that the ability of our people to safely build water and power distribution systems will be our future. What got us here today is going to keep us and grow us well into the future. EPCOR is a company that takes base hits. It's not in our nature to swing for the fences. The EPCOR brand means everything to us. Well, I can lose money on a deal. We can perhaps fall short. But we can never afford to tarnish our image and the trust that goes with it. At the end of the day, our brand and the trust that customers, employees, and our shareholder place in it is really all that we've got. Our brand is our special ingredient, and it is the work of boards and leaders to ensure that that trust is never lost. Thank you.